Michael, I need to talk with you. You got to come back this way.
Good afternoon, Rotarians, and welcome to our March 9th meeting. I don't know why I say that, except for I got to get myself warmed up to begin this hour. A little bit of change from our normal sequence of events. The first thing is to make everybody aware that there is a card of condolence for Dick Anderson and his family out in the lobby. If you'd be kind enough to stop and sign it. I'm sure there'll be more about Dick Anderson later. In addition, while you're out there in the lobby or as you're on your way in, some of you may have noticed that we have antibacterial hand sanitizer. I don't know how we got that out of Costco, but we have it. And at this time of where there's so many questions about health, it might be a good time to think about hand sanitizer. And I don't know what the rest of you guys are doing, but for me, while we go through this, you better get used to me doing this on the Ebola bump. Moving forward, we're going to have a great program today. We've got Mike Beazley, who is the administrator for the City of Oregon. I'm looking forward to what Mike has to say. I'm told he's a great speaker, so do your best.
I'm okay.
Okay. And can I ask that Mike George come up and do the reflection, followed by Maria Ranker for the pledge.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear God, as Rotarians, we are called to lead, but leadership takes many forms. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is righteously indignant, and sometimes it puts the needs of others over the needs of self. To do great things is difficult, but to lead others to greatness is more difficult, yet in the end, more rewarding. Please guide our leaders here today to forge new paths, to create new opportunities, and to humbly ask for your guidance. Let us all remember that we never stand taller than when we kneel to help another along the journey of life. Amen.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike and Maria, both. Thank you very much. It's Raymond, and I would like to thank, in particular, Brian Kennedy for arranging that. Thank you, Brian. As I ask for visiting Rotarians, let me acknowledge that Do Nguyen. Do, could you raise your hand and be recognized? Do is a past district governor. He's been a very committed Rotarian for all of his life. He's a good friend, and I don't think you're doing enough lately, so I got a few committees I'd like you to sit on. Do we have any visiting Rotarians? I don't know if we have others. Okay. And now I would like to invite
Wow, this is very low. President Tim, I have, as most of us know, we're rechartering the.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Genesis Waljan, and I'm the president of the Rotary at the University of Toledo, currently a graduate student.
I am from Nepal, and I am MBA Finance and Analytics student at the University of Toledo. Thank you.
welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Vivek Acharya and I'm from Nepal. I'm doing my MBA from University of Toledo.
Welcome. Good luck to your Rotary Club. Thanks, Mark.
I'd like to introduce Jesse Stock. Today's Jesse's first day as our new employee at the Greater Toledo Community Foundation. He's also new to the community. They relocated from Athens, Ohio to Perrysburg. So welcome, Jesse.
Welcome. Good luck with your job.
President Tim, I'm very proud to have as a guest David Thebe from the University of Toledo Foundation, Assistant Director, and he's working in the College of Medicine and Life Sciences, and he has a father and brother who are both Rotarians in Evansville, Indiana.
Welcome. Enjoy the meeting.
Good afternoon, President Tim, fellow Rotarians. Along with me today is Jody Rebecker, who is with the Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority, and she is their administrator of their PACE Energy Financing Program.
Welcome, Jody.
Good afternoon, President Tim and fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Craig Albers, President of Mercy Health St. Charles Hospital on the East Side, and he's interested in hearing.
Enjoy the meeting.
President Tim and fellow Rotarians, my guest today is Tara Bollinger. Tara is a CPA and principal with the accounting firm of Clark, Schaefer, and Hackett.
Welcome, Tara.
President Tim, fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest, Dave Scherting. Dave is the Director of IT at Lucas County Children's Services.
Thank you, David. Welcome. Welcome to all. We're happy that you're here. We hope you enjoy the meeting. Is Max, I didn't see Max today. Are you here? Hello, Max.
We went from no visitors to a gang of visitors. That was nice. Second Monday of the month, which means tonight we'll be playing euchre at the Toledo Club. About playing, tonight would be the night to play. Everybody has a really good time. It costs about $5. The winner takes home the pot, but that's not why we're there. We're there to have a good time. Bring a friend, bring your family, bring your spouse or your partner. It should be a good time. It always is. Any questions? Thank you, President Tim.
Thank you, Max. Scott Henshaw, I think I saw you today. Are you out there? You are. Welcome. Welcome. I see that you're at the floor mic today and scheduled to speak to us.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know how the rules work, but what are we going to do with food?
All right, there we go. I'll take April 25th for 500. Rotarians, on April 25th, we will have our annual food pack. We're going to do it from 9 a.m. To noon. That day, it's going to be at the Ottawa new gym again. We're going to do it in combination with several other local Rotaries. So we will have Perrysburg participating mom funds, so we'll be able to fund the many meals that we're going to try to pack. We're going to look, I think, at packing about 40,000 meals this year. And so.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Murphy, would you come to the mic and introduce a new member?
Thank you, President Tim. David was born in Toledo in 1993. He went to school in Erie Mason, which is a school in Erie, Michigan, until he was a freshman in high school. At that time, he became frustrated with the small school and lack of activities, so he asked his parents if he could transfer to Toledo. At 8 years old, he helped his father start a small residential roofing and construction company. In doing so, he developed an understanding and an interest in entrepreneurship as well as construction. After graduating from Central Catholic High School in 2011, Dave went to Ohio State University and graduated with a bachelor's in civil engineering. In order to pursue his passion for construction, he took a job with Turner Construction in Columbus and was determined to make a positive change in the city where he grew up. In 2016, David moved back to his home and to work with the Lathrop Group on generations of care tower at the Toledo Hospital. He has since moved through the ranks of field engineer, assistant superintendent, cost analyst, and is now project manager, currently working at Owens Community College. David enjoys volunteering, fundraising, and special events. In 2017, he chaired the volunteer group that renovated the woodland gazebo at the Toledo Botanical Garden. He says he is grateful. Laziness, all my attributes. Entitlement, leaving wrappers in the car. Please join me in welcoming David to Toledo Rotary.
David, congratulations. I think you're going to make a great Rotarian. I thought that Murph was going to go through all of the 7 deadly sins when he was talking. Perhaps for next time. We're really glad you're joining us. We're glad you come back to Toledo. And in terms of projects, humanitarian projects, we're the place to be. I encourage you to join a committee. That's where you'll make the friends that everybody wants, and that's where you'll get to do the most fun stuff. I have two things for you. The first is a pin, which now says you're the newest Rotarian in the world, and the roster. So good luck to you.
I appreciate it.
Bob, are you ready? Okay, you're going to do a good job this time.
As opposed to.
Bob Amfor, please introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President, somehow. But for those few of us in the room who may not know much about Mike, he joined the City of Oregon as administrator in March of 2010. He's also a senior policy advisor to Mayor Wade Kapsakavich, and he holds various leadership positions in local government and public policy and has done so for over 40 years. Among his many activities, he is the chairman of the Lucas County, or has been the chairman of the Lucas County Board of Elections, clerk of Toledo City Council, and the Lucas County Administrator. In addition to his day job, his wife Julie, who is here today, has 4 adult children and 7 grandchildren. In what is laughably known as his spare time, he also enjoys cycling, in addition to being on some 5 boards that he serves on around the area. I know Mike from one of those board commitments that he has as chairman of the vocational board at Sunshine Communities. And in that capacity, he's always been a man of a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, and very good humor. Today, he's going to talk about how energy impacts our regional economy. The Toledo area produces most of Ohio's gasoline and is currently producing the lowest priced electrical power in the U.S. He'll talk about how the local energy has attracted billions in new capital investments in regional facilities and Oregon's clean energy program, which offers low-priced natural gas and is host to the largest solar manufacturer in North America. Please welcome Mike Beazley.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. And good to see everyone out here. Bob kind of gave my whole talk so I can make it a little quicker. I was going to open up with a coronavirus joke, but my wife says it's too soon. So we'll come back about 5 years from now and we'll try it again. Good luck as we all deal with those challenges. I know people with real businesses in real time are wondering how we're going to deal with a couple of those things that are making it a little extra more of a challenge for us out there. Energy. I just want to really, the focus of today is to talk about how much is happening in our economy, in our region in real time. I'm not going to do a lot of editorializing about what is better, what is perfect. Just the stuff we make in Oregon is ideal. Everything else is subpar. But there's so much out there that's driving the economy, and we all have our opinions about which way it should go and where the market's going to be. In the end, we're going to wrap up with a challenge for the group. Instead of questions, I want you to come up with solutions as we look at where is the country going to go, where's our economy going to go, and how can this region position itself to be ready to roll to the next level. So I'm going to roll through the things. I'm going to begin with on energy. The most important point is other people's money. There are so many important sectors in our economy. I'm probably from the least important one, that's government. Because virtually all the money we spend in government first comes out of your pockets and it's simply redistributed. Those sectors are still important and perform value to our economy and to our region. It's okay. But, retail is important. I love it. It's a driving essential sector, but that's our money getting recirculated. Even I see Dave Waterman here. He brings in money from all over the world from Shoemaker Loop. But it's still mostly local money that's getting recirculated. Our accounting sectors, all those pieces. But if you look at certain manufacturing and the energy sectors, we have people sending us money from throughout the state, from Indiana, from Michigan, and the case of First Solar from the range to us going forward. How do we leverage that recognition that in the energy sector, we are bringing in other people's money to add real value to the region? So I want all of us to be mindful of that. And since it is such a moving target, we've got to be aware that it's going to keep going. So it's going to go someplace else. It doesn't sit still. Just just 10 years ago, call them cowboy capitalists, investors, deal organizers, came to see me in Oregon, Ohio. It was Bill Martin and Bill Seidowitz. They're two guys from New England. I was actually trying and drag Bill Seidowitz here today, but he could not come. They're in and out of town every few weeks. They were looking at Ohio and they said, we're looking at some opportunities here. And they're looking at about maybe 4 different locations. And after some discussion and about 4 visits and I think 100 conference calls and 13,000 lawyers, they went out and they lined up $75 million of private money. No government aid, no tax abatement. They put this money at risk that they developed with their partners, and they built a gas pipeline. And that pipeline started at the Maumee Gate. If people are familiar with it, I know there's some Andersons people here, just south of your property out in Maumee, we have something called the Maumee Gate. The Maumee Gate is an important energy hub because it brings in 2 gas pipelines and brings them to this area. It's among the things that makes our region competitive. We have the A&R pipeline, that gas there, and they also saw something else going on in eastern Ohio, and they said, we're going to run a pipeline, and we're going to call it the Oregon Lateral, and we're going to run it, put about $75 million up, and ran it around to Oregon, Ohio. And that one single investment off of that pipeline came the $900 million gas-fired electric generating plant that is now Oregon Clean Energy, that is producing what is routinely the least expensive electric power routinely generated in the United States today. It is an important resource, and obviously the electrons flow everywhere, and no matter who you're buying them from, the likeliest thing is that the lights and the power in this building are coming from that station right now in real time, no matter where it's getting sold. The electrons are going to follow that path. So that facility is one $900 million investment off that same pipeline. Oh, that's the other thing we talked about when they came in. We said, let's build the pipeline large enough to do something with it. Let's just not sneak it through. Let's not meet our minimum needs. Let's be aspirational. So we oversized it by at least 2. They built, from that, we have an ethanol product. That's a new $100 million investment into this economy that is set up in Oregon, Ohio, that feeds off that same gas line. And then there's a company called Cliffs. Anybody hear from Cliffs today? The little company called Cliffs. And those of us who are in economic development and in government, we take credit for every job that ever comes, right? Who got it done? We did. Well, Cliffs, we didn't go out and recruit. And they were looking for a place where they could find gas, water, a port, some rail activity. And so that's now, I think they're calling that like a $920 million capital investment. And then I think they're going to be wrapped up and open for operations by about July. The interesting things to say about our economy and where it's going. Then if you look out, there's a little steel operation out in Delta, Ohio that has just recently announced a significant expansion. There's a lot of reasons they might be expanding, but also that raw material that Cliffs is producing is a significant driver of that outcome. So understand that a simple decision by these 2 cowboy capitalist investors who came in here that said, we're going to put up $75 million. They didn't ask us for any. They've asked us for a lot of help. All right. But they didn't ask us for any money. That decision has just generated billions of dollars of outcomes. And these companies are not just single standing companies. Any of you who are, I know Lathrop's been out at them, I heard they're here today, but other folks who are in the engineering, the trades, who are working at these facilities, those are real drivers of business activity for our region for generations. So be aware of those consequences. So there's consequences to energy decisions going forward. All right, and that's the question is, let me go back a minute. I rolled too far. I go way too far. Okay, why Oregon? All right, I'm not really an IT guy. I've got one back there who's my consultant. He's giving me the thumbs up. All right. In terms of why Oregon, why did they decide? So Bill and Bill came. We call them Bill. We call them fungible. All right, they're the same name. They do almost the same things. But the Bills came to town, and we said, we went through and we took, how can we lure them here? The main thing we had is they looked long-term. They said Ohio has a 2,000-year supply of natural gas sitting on the Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia border. 2,000-year supply at current usage rates. And depending on, assuming we double it or triple it, maybe it'll only last 500 years. But it's certainly through them seen as whatever the transition is going to be to all sustainable, it was going to be natural gas. It's right here. It's in Ohio. We're not sending the money to Kuwait. We're putting people to work here to generate this product. So they saw that as an opportunity. Number two, this gas is producing what on the books to them, and these are going to remain that way. So again, what is that business opportunity? Remember, I think there was an industry that came here because of low price energy maybe 100 years ago. I think it was called the glass industry. All right. That same sort of cost driver led to that investment decision that, again, transformed our region. That's why we've got to be so mindful of that. All right. They also saw we had some good grid access because we had all these old coal plants that were going to go dark. And the coal plants hadn't gone dark yet. And I asked Bill, I said, what makes you think that the coal plants are going to go away? They said, the math doesn't work. You can't dig coal out of a mountain, load it into trains, and burn it. And I think at about a 30%. Is there any thermodynamics people here? I got my thermodynamics degree from an unaccredited university, so I'm not really good at this. I think it's getting burned at about a 35% efficient rate when it's coal. People and about 8 times as much capital to operate and build a coal plant. The math just won't work for coal. And that's separate from any environmental questions, which were real as you go. So from our end, we had also access to water. They need a maximum on a big day, 5.5 million gallons of water. So we saw we have water, we have grid, we have the lowest priced natural gas in the world. We can run this pipe. We also they felt really at the way I said they could get that in some other places. They wanted to make sure there was a local government, and this was a challenge just for all of us on the government side, that could meet their needs. They could get out of the way when necessary, could facilitate, could be an advocate in Columbus. They had to go through a complex regulatory process and permitting process, the federal, the FERC level, the state level, Public Utilities Commission, Ohio Power Siting Board. All those pieces are important as they go. But understand that they wanted to make sure they had a government that at some point we gave them the confidence that we could be an ally for them and make it work for them. So on from there. So I feel good about that choice, about what it means. I want to take a minute then. So that's kind of, I'm going to call gas new to middle-aged energy. Well, let's talk a little bit about some old energy. And I just bring to mind a couple of startup businesses. About 100 years ago, a guy, John D. Rockefeller, and a company he had, was part of starting a refinery out here in Oregon, Ohio. It's called the Toledo Refinery, but actually sits in Oregon. And that business is now 100 years old and makes 160,000 barrels a day of gasoline type products. It pushes oil through, and they're making jet fuel, et cetera. And again, that company is 100 years old, and they're the parvenu. They're the new people, all right? Because just a couple miles south of there, there's another refinery that was originally the Sunoco refinery, the Sun Oil refinery. That's 125 years old. And again, understand the economic driver that these industries are. There are so many Toledo companies that are right now, and regional companies that are the largest resource they have, and their largest customer are those refineries. There's about 1,000 people, but another 400 to 700, depending on the day, are working as contractors who are working from the trades, are working for other local companies in this area, where like RMF Neuter, if you know RMF Neuter, they're a giant company with a facility here in Toledo, Ohio, almost no one's ever heard of. They're here because the refineries are here. It's an economic driver for them. There's engineering companies out there doing that work, and I know contractors whose only reason they can be successful, those refineries are there. Those are huge drivers. I think between them, there are about 1,000 Ohio vendors in that niche. So understand what that means, understand what that means in terms of what the industry is doing. Size refineries here in Ohio, Two of them are in Oregon, Ohio. One of them is in Lima, also in this market, that we have to be mindful of. And as we ask that, again, instead of Q&A, I want answers from you. Where's that market going to go? How long are they going to be here? What is it going to mean to us? What's that going to be that next driver as we go? Let's be aware of it as we look at it. There's just some data on the points just showing there's just the point that Toledo Refining points out. They spend $2 million a month just on their electric bill. $1 million a month on their sewer bill, and on through the system. BP has 1,000. Has 1,000 local other companies that work for them across Ohio. So huge economic drivers. Now let's talk. One last note on kind of older energy. We also have in supporter of the gas industry and the solar industry a little bit more. I'm a little less excited about propping up the nuclear industry. It's just my politics on it. All right, I just don't feel like the math works. But I have my bias looking out for Oregon and Toledo. But that nuclear plant is a significant economic driver for the region. The coal plant in Monroe, there's lots of Toledo companies doing a lot of work there. This region, with those assets, plus the next two I'm going to mention, we produce more power. You have to go to Houston to find a place where energy is a bigger driver. You can make a case for Pittsburgh area, but in the Midwest, we don't make more energy per capita than Chicago. We make more energy than the Chicago market. So understand that driver for us. There's so much opportunity for business and value. We just have to think of what it means to us as we go forward. Now, onto the kind of the new energy side. First, solar. Again, it evolved out of the glass industry, but people don't understand how large they have already grown. Now, they've had a lot of, there's already more people working there than work at Davis-Besse and understand that value, all right? There's more people working in that shop with that recent expansion, and there's opportunity. There's like about 7,000 people working in Ohio in the solar sector, and it's only growing. So be aware of that driver. And from First Solar, as is their case was with the gas, they made the decisions to grow there. And what followed behind it? Pilking did a strong and active workforce at a high work rate. It's all there, again, out of that energy sector. All right, so understand that value and that change as we go. A couple of other little pieces of it as you look at it. All of these pieces are going to talk about where we're going to go. Where's energy going to go? Demand is still on the rise. We are getting more efficient in this country, but our population is still growing, and we have a whole rest of the planet that's aspiring to get to our level of middle-class existence. Some of you are hoping to be higher than that, but that case, the whole people all over the world who are moving into that class and are going to need energy. We believe we're going to have to be able to build all the solar capacity we could possibly. And global middle class is growing. I think by one estimate, somebody said there'll be 1 billion new customers between Indonesia, not a shampoo. Neither one of us does that much. But I need less than I used to, all right? But that demand is growing. And at the same time, those families are going to want energy that is going to have an impact on us as we go. All right, so we want to make the point that we're going to need all supplies going forward. How is it that this region can find a way to profit and prosper with that knowledge? How can we make renewables in a way that are responsible if the market is going to, even products like methanol that we have, there's a new facility called Alpont out in Oregon. There had never been any made in the Midwest. All our demand for methanol was met in the Gulf, but Asia was now saying we want to buy all that product being produced in the Gulf. So they started to look for locations to make it here, and they chose here because of the gas line that was available. Again, the water that we could deliver, the rail traffic. So our assets are real. As you can see, this shows you just a little sense of where You can go back to the 1700s, which gives you, that was a few weeks ago. In fact, as I noted to the president, I'm so old, I've spoken to the Sylvania Rotary Club, the Maumee Rotary Club, the Oregon Rotary Club. I spoke to this club, I believe, when it met at the Hillcrest, if anyone's old enough to remember that. Anybody remember that old? That's how long I've been around. I think the Hillcrest has been closed, what, 2 years now? Maybe. All right, so getting that perspective. But you can look and see the global change over time. Natural gas is growing. The renewables are growing, but you can see how much room there is for the renewables to make progress as you look at this. There's lots of space for them to grow. Let's take, as we talk about that demand and those pieces on renewables and where it goes, let's talk for a minute about Ohio and where it is. One of the challenges here, we have the largest manufacturer in the Americas and First Solar. The industry really began here and evolved out of our float glass industry. But if you look at one of the challenges with us, there are actually no utility scale solar arrays yet in Ohio. I think the largest array in Ohio is in Bowling Green. Anybody here from Bowling Green tied into that? All right, I think you have the largest array in the state. There are about 100 plus megawatts is kind of the toggling point where you start to creep up into a works. They pay for themselves without REX credits or without even selling capacity necessarily. You can make it work. And so I had a meeting this morning actually about plans for clouds. All right, that's why this winter was so cloudy. The prevailing winds come across Lake Michigan. So as we look at solar arrays, we have to decide ours are going to be less productive or we have to move them maybe 100 miles south. It's a trade-off we're going to have to make as we look at that challenge. We also have the most expensive interconnect in Ohio. Are my friend any here from First Energy? For our friends, wonderful company. Here's this asterisk. It's the most expensive connection to the grid of any of the utilities. So Duke Power, AEP, Dayton Power, dollars, additional cost to connect in this section of the grid if you're looking to pump up to the grid. So that's a factor that we have to look at is where do we place this power and how do we leverage it in our future as we go out there. So just a minute on environmental challenges and the politics of this. We've just got to be mindful of it as we go. Obviously, we all have strong opinions about where the future is. And I'm convinced that solar and to a certain extent wind are going to be our long-term drivers. But they all have challenges in terms of space. So I love solar and think the math works. But what do you need with solar? I need some sun. We need some land. So to build something, the Oregon Clean Energy Plant is producing is just about exactly the same size, a little bit larger than Davis-Besse, just something under 1,000 megawatts. To produce that amount of power on a regular basis, depending on the technology, you're going to need 10 to 20,000 acres to produce that amount of power. So that's, again, that's a cost and a challenge for us as we go. Now, the technology may change over time to make a difference for that, but we're going to need something we're going to have to come up with some land someplace. All right. And our farmland has a cost and have a productivity. So it's got to come from somewhere. So understand that challenge. And that's just one plant. So as we're looking for, you're going to see some announcements though within, I think, looking for places where we can make the math work to produce, to put in a 100 megawatt array. Can I say megawatt array? I'm not sure I can do that. A megawatt array as you go forward. That's a challenge as we go and we're aware of that dynamic. Let me see if I can. Okay, now here's the easy part. Help predict the future. This is an ask. All right. Position ourselves as a region. Maybe you can ask some questions too. But as you do, let's be mindful of that challenge. We think we are going to attract a second 900 megawatt power plant. We expect to break ground within 90 days right now. We are going through final pre-closing work with, again, 7,000 lawyers. I think when you're closing on $1 billion project, I think we had 227 lawyers on the conference call the last time we did it. And there's obviously a bunch of investors and lenders and banks and regulators. We're going through that same cycle again. And it is exciting for us to get a second plant going. But there's downsides. I love to get it. There's downsides with it. If that plant comes, anyone ever notice Oregon Clean Energy off and east of us here in Oregon? Anybody notice the view? Lots of steam coming off it. It's evaporating water. All it is coming off the cooling ponds. But it's kind of disquieting for some of our residents. They say, boy, you're really going to bring in another one of those? It's just evaporating water, but it's something you notice on the horizon pretty clearly, which has the opportunity to lower everyone's bill and protect it long term. That I believe that it is a great partner for solar long term, because solar works when the sun shines and it can be a great partner for it. So I view that as a natural partner for our renewables for the foreseeable future. By the time they run through their useful life, I think we'll be in, something close to an overwhelmingly renewable portfolio. But for the time being, we need that sort of investment. The challenge that we get is, where do we run that next gas line? Right now, we're working on places of that gas line. And what sort of spin-offs can we get from that? How do we create value? Do we welcome those things? Is there a place that wants to host a cracker? Or do we all think, oh, I don't want a cracker here? That's something that makes the various polythanes and takes and makes plastics and those sorts of things, car parts and those pieces, that we think we could produce an economic driver as big as a refinery. We've got to find a good location to host it. And I have a meeting Thursday with the RGP. We're actually sitting and looking at places where we could put a 500-acre facility if we can run a gas line to it, and if we can attract that sort of investment, because this low-priced Ohio power can be a driver for us for decades to come. Let's be smart about it. Other questions to ask on the environmental side. Obviously, coal, the math stopped working for coal, in addition to the environmental challenges for it. The math has stopped working for it. We think it is going to be, that gasoline will be in demand for a long time. But if you look at our gasoline sector, and also that kind of blends with our agricultural fuel sector that are blended with it to make fuel, in 5 years, change typically happens faster than we guess. So let's be aware of that as we go and challenge ourselves to ask us to be ready. What kind of outcomes can we produce? So I'll be a switch. It's time for me to knock it off. Thank you for your patience. Skip the questions. Give me solutions. All right. Where's the market going to go?
About wind power. Okay. Location and amount of land.
Many other states, lots of us have driven around the country and have seen other states that seem to have done better with this than Ohio has. If you look at those wind farms, the economics of scale don't work very well when you have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many are down in Bowling Green now? 3. It's hard to make the math work with just 3. If you notice the trend even driving up, it's working as well as solar, but that's a moving target. Ohio, and again, there's environmental pushback, which whatever course you take, there's people pushing back on wind right now. I happen to think they kind of look kind of cool on the horizon, but that's a question of taste. Some people are offended by seeing the evaporating water coming off of a gas plant. Some people don't want to see that. I don't think it's hurting many birds, but that's what I hear every time we talk about it. We had a big fight about siting them in Oregon because of the Lake Erie flyway and the birds. So those are challenges we're going to face with any type of energy we choose. Every system we have is either going to use up our land, it's going to have a societal cost, and some costs that are carried off books that we've got to challenge ourselves to be ready to ask those real questions until somebody invents this great battery technology that will solve all our problems. Any other questions? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Well, it is, and again, it's politics. There's a discussion and active engineering going on in the Cleveland area. Anyone involved in that? In the Cleveland area for how to do a wind farm off of the coast of Lake Erie. And again, there's those who think, boy, they're majestic. Others will say, how can you wreck up my view of Lake Erie? I just bought John has his, $1 million home on the lake over there, and it would really wreck your view. I know he wouldn't be happy to see it, John, unless they give you free power as a trade. But those are challenges. The math can work. It's not, in some ways, though, if you put them on farmland, they don't. I have some farmers that love them because they want
Brandon,
that
move him a little
revenue.
more to the
It's
left.
a crop that only casts a tiny shadow to reduce their soybean yield, but it's still some don't want it. That's the challenge to go. How soon you want me off? Let's go ahead.
Mike, you asked wind, solar, and things of that
Not
nature.
always. It's wind and solar are both cheaper than nuclear or coal by a lot, just so we all know.
And I solar and apply those to larger industrial complexes. Would it not drive the cost of some of the more expensive energy down since they didn't have as many distribution points, and take the natural gas, which is naturally cheap, and actually use that and distribute that to residential customers? Would that in fact, over a period of time, continue to keep the cost of energy as low as we can possibly keep it?
It's still hard to make that math work that way, Gary. I will say it's interesting when you think about it. It shows you the role of government. Every form of energy in our lives is cheaper now, controlled for inflation, than it was 10 years ago. Propane, heating oil, number 2 oil, natural gas, generated electricity, solar and wind, gasoline, jet fuel. They're all cheaper than they were. What's more expensive? The things that government regulates. Utility delivered electric and gas power. The only things that are more expensive than they were 10 years ago. So that gives us a little bit of a cautionary tale. On the industrial side, everything else is cheaper. I don't think government is doing a great job, or maybe the lobbyists are maneuvering us a little bit.
Okay, Mike, I took a stab at it, and since you said government's the problem, I'm just going to zero on out of here.
I'm a government guy on that one. All right, thank you, Gary. All right, anything else? All right. Please mail solutions.
Just a few thoughts. You're running off all those chemicals that are being produced on the east side and scaring the hell out of me.
No.
Just so you know.
Evaporating water.
Okay, well, good. Mike, thank you very much for the presentation today. It was very, very interesting. And we have 2 gifts. One is the Historic Tales of Toledo, which I'll leave you with.
I do enjoy these always.
Given our age, you should be ready to write one. And the other thing is, as you probably know, polio is the disease that Rotary is committed to eradicating. And to that end, we will make a contribution to the Polio Plus Fund in your name. So today, you're saving a few lives.
This is good. Thank you.
Okay. We have a meeting at the Finance Committee of the North Cape at the end of this meeting. Chuckman is away. Do you have a film for us in Chuck's stead, Walter?
Well, frankly, I'm stunned. Do you think it's really professional? I think it's amazing. You realize, George, I've loved music all my life. Excuse us, Mrs. Kissel. Loved it all my life. Of course, I made a choice. I'm not dissatisfied. No, I took the right road. Well, I think you did, yes. But the music, have clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity. Yes. Yes. All right. All right, Mrs. Kissel, we'll take care of it. Been with me for ages. Yes. It's all right. You go on back to the kitchen now. No damage done. How old is she? I honestly don't know. I don't think she does. Whenever Mrs. Kissel breaks wind, we beat the dog.
There was nothing funny about anything in that film, but why are we laughing? Our speaker next week is John Presloyd from Jeopardy, and with that, we are adjourned.